and homicides. If you have an issue with that, we have reporting we have done on that. So if your group is working on an initiative and you can think you can use our data, just give us a call, and we'd be very happy to help you.
Wonderful, thank you. Anyone else have questions? I think this is a wonderful resource, especially I know a few of you work at hospitals. Laura, I see you there. And I know a lot of you work in communities that really could use this information, this data. And I think, Kathleen, if you want to touch a little bit about, and I think you may have already, but just stressing the point that, like, if we're looking for data, like specific data, or like, I want to know this about this of this community, this type
Yes.
of information. Yeah. Can you speak a little bit more on that?
I would love to do that. There was the group up, and I'm speaking about the group up in Winnebago County. They're working on intimate partner violence. They wanted someone to think with. They were starting out on this project, and they were looking for a thought partner, and we were able to provide that. You don't need to come to us with a fully formed idea. We understand that, getting to know this data, 2,400 fields, really, it takes us a long time to get to know what we're doing too here. So if you think the data is helpful, if you're working on a project, you can call up and we can think together. We're happy to do that. And one of the things that was really interesting is when we started thinking together with the group up in Winnebago, we were able to put together a data that they didn't actually realize the extent of the problem that we were having, because some of the people that we have here on our staff have been working with this data for a very long time, and they're able to look at the intricacies within the data. And so we were able to find that a problem what they thought was small was actually a little bit bigger than what they thought, and which is good, because in a way, because now that they're starting out on this project, they have a solid footing with which they can move forward, and they can assess their work. And yeah, so that's, I hope, does that answer your question? Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thank you.
So don't feel like you need to come with fully formed, this is it. We're happy to think with you. We understand that that's part of our job.
I have my hand raised for a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
On a loneliness project also, just to provide help and support. And I'm wondering, what is the years that encompass these reports?
Okay, no, thank you. Great question. We got approval to start with the IVDRS system in 2015. So we have data starting. We have some data for 2015, and we brought more counties on from there out. So depending on where you're at, 2015 with the Illinois Violent Death Reporting System, with the SUDOR system, the statewide unintentional drug overdose system, that didn't come on, that module didn't come on until 2019, basically because the toxicology wasn't there for us to be giving out reports that could be used in a healthcare setting. It just wasn't strong enough. But around about 2019, we started getting, 18, 19, we started getting really good data that we could, give to you guys. So from there on out, yeah. Great. We do have an elder report that's coming out that you might find interesting. So
how do we request it then?
Pardon?
How do we make the request? Do we email you?
Yeah, just email myself and I'll get you in touch with the right person. And again, like I said, all these links are hot. And so you can go directly to our LinkedIn, sign up there. You can sign up for our newsletter, and you can speak to us directly. And you can also go and look at our website and see the reports that we have coming out this year. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Does. Okay. Anyone else?
Yes. Hi, my name is Laura Leon. I work with Sinai Community Institute. Okay. I really want to thank you. Data is so important, and I'm so glad that you mentioned how it affects, resource grants things like that. I know I experienced a few years back in the Brighton Park area, some local data was presented, and it showed like the deaths were happening in 60608. But the community, they said, no, the kids are getting shot here in Brighton Park. And the city was able to go back and figure out some other data sources. And then they really realized, okay, that the people were dying in the hospitals in 60608, but they actually got shot in Brighton Park. So, data is very important. So I'm very looking forward to look at the reports that you have on site. I have a data question that I'm working on a infant mortality issue,
Uh-huh.
and so when we and we're funded by a city grant, so it's for the city of Chicago. But I know, and I'm sorry, I'm not a public health background. My background is urban development and business, but I've always used data and to help me. And I look at both state data, county data, city data, whatever data I can get my hands on to compare and see. So my question to you is like on deaths of infant mortality um, for Chicago, is state data helpful?
You know what? Oh, that's an interesting question. I would have to ask my director.
Okay.
She would have the answer to that. If you could shoot me an email
Okay.
afterwards, then we can talk about it offline. I'd be happy to do
Okay.
that. We have done some reporting um, on infant deaths in the past. You may want to take a look at our IVDRS reports and see what we have in there. Now, the other thing to remember is our data isn't EMS data. It's not like that. Our data is actually 18 months to almost 2 years behind when a case actually occurs. So it's not right on the moment. But that's okay because our work is different. Our work is that kind of upstream, very thoughtful, policy related kind of work where we're looking at circumstances and we're trying to change systems, just systems that you may have led to or were needed strengthening.
Yes.
So that's the kind of work that we do here and
Yes.
the kind of conversations that we engage in. So depending on the kinds of infant deaths, we may or may not be able to help you, but I would be very happy to speak with you. Yes.
Thank you very much. And no, and your work is, crime is a big issue in our community,
Yes.
safety. So thank you for your work.
No, thank you.
Wonderful. I'm going to cut it a little short. I know we can talk about data all day long and the importance of it and how helpful it can be for the work that we're doing. So I encourage all of our ambassadors here to send Kathleen and her team an email with any question, any ideas you might have, and I'll be doing the same thing. So if you ever just want to connect on something, let us know. So thank you so much, Kathleen. I appreciate you making time to present to our group.
Thank you so much for having me, and we're happy to come back if you need us again. Take care.
Wonderful. Thank you. Take care. Thanks. All righty. Moving right along with our next presenter, I want to pass the mic over to Dr. Perla Games. Dr. Perla, I see you there. Hi.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for making time for our meeting. The floor is yours, and you're also welcome to share the screen if you'd like.
Okay, I'm gonna try. I usually work on Zoom, so
Yeah.
Can you see this screen here?
Yes, we can.
Okay, beautiful. So hello, everybody. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and meet you and to talk about our Project Verbal. The Project Verbal stands for Visits, Environment, Recording, Bilingualism, and Language Learning. And I want to start off by just giving a brief introduction to who I am. I'm an associate professor of psychology at Loyola University, Chicago, where I teach developmental psychology and language development. And I'm also the director of the Bilingual Language Development Lab, where I mentor undergraduate and graduate students on research. Incidentally, I'm also a Chicago native. I grew up right outside of the city skirts in Cicero, Illinois. And I'm also a mom who's trying to raise my daughters to be bilingual. This here is an image of the students who I mentor in my lab. I'm here today because I want to get to know you, and I also want to share the details of our current research project because I'm hoping that you can help me spread the word to find eligible families for this research project. This project, Verbal, the goal of the project is to understand the culture-specific factors that promote bilingual development in young Spanish-speaking Latino children. And I'll give some more details in a minute. But I want to start off by talking about why we think that bilingualism is important and why we're interested in looking at how children develop bilingually. So as you already know, bilingualism has its social advantages. So we know that being able to speak multiple languages is a valuable resource in today's global world. So I'm here on Zoom, actually I'm on WebEx today, and I can speak to anybody in any part of the world as long as they have an internet connection. So I can talk to my family down in Mexico. I can talk to people overseas if I can speak that same language. We also know that being bilingual has its economic advantages. Some data suggests that those who speak a language here in the US, those who speak a language other than English, or in addition to English, get more job offers, and this translates to higher salaries in comparison to monolinguals. And as a researcher, I can't not talk about the cognitive advantages of being bilingual. So there's a lot of research that suggests that when you are bilingual, you have better control of attention. So this means that by being able to speak another language, because I'm constantly activating both languages, when I speak English, Spanish is always in the background. When I speak Spanish, English is always in the background. And because I'm constantly negotiating these two languages, we find that bilinguals have better cognitive control than those who have one language. So I'm better able to pay attention to the things that I want to pay attention to and then inhibit and ignore information that's not really relevant to what I'm doing. We also know that it allows us to have better perspective taking. So earlier when we were talking about being able to communicate with different people across the world, well, that allows us to then be able to talk to and see the perspective of other people. Sort of go into your head and say, okay, you are culturally different than I am, but in being able to talk with you, I can learn about your culture. I can learn about different ideas and perspectives. And what I think would be really interesting for this group to hear about is that we also know that bilingualism confers protections against dementia. So there's some work that suggests that those who are going to be predisposed to for example, Alzheimer's, we see that the onset of Alzheimer's is about 4 to 5 years delayed in bilinguals in comparison to monolinguals. In other words, if we're going to get dementia, we're going to get dementia. But we find that those who have been exercising their brain, negotiating these two languages, which we see as exercising that muscle, that brain muscle, we see that we can stave off the onset of dementia in 4 to 5 years, and that's a big chunk, right? That's a really important life that the elderly can still live. Why do we want to focus on Latino children? Because we know that Latino children come from Spanish-speaking homes. And yet, when we track them across time, we find that Spanish-speaking Latinos, those who come from homes in which English is not the primary language, they tend to experience native language loss. So what I'm showing here are data from a large-scale study where we were tracking the language development of children in preschool. So you see at the right or at the left here. So at the fall of preschool, and then we go all the way to the spring of 5th grade. When we track kids who are coming from these Spanish-speaking homes, we find some good news is that their English continues to grow as they progress in the school system. So that's really good news that our schools are teaching our kids English. But what you end up seeing, and now I want you to focus on this red line, this red curve here, what we end up seeing is that Spanish seems to taper off. So if we would track these kids even longer past the age of 11, we wouldn't expect this line to increase. We would expect it to either stay the same or get a little bit lower. And this is really important because we know that about 20% of the public school population are these children who are coming from Spanish-speaking homes. So what these data suggest is that if our schools aren't doing the work of getting our kids to maintain their bilingualism, it places the onus of bilingualism on families. And so that's why this project is so important. You see in the middle here, I have bilingualism, and we look at a ton of different factors, and we're really focused on the culture-specific factors that are going to promote bilingualism. So we'll look at things like the amount and type of English and Spanish. We look at what types of family investments and community resources these caregivers are relying on to keep their children speaking both English and Spanish. When I talk about family and community resources, we're interested in having all types of caregivers and their children join our project. And in particular for Latino families, we're not just interested in mothers and fathers, but also extended families, members like grandparents, uncles, and aunts, because we know that in Latino families, they tend to live in multi-generational homes. And in fact, the AARP noted that 40% of grandparents provide childcare for their grandchildren. So for this project, we want to contribute new discoveries about bilingualism. We want to learn what is it that caregivers are doing in the home to promote bilingual development. And we do this by visiting homes 5 times, starting when the child is 1 year of age until the child is 3 years of age. So we go into the home every 6 months. And then near the end of the study, what we do is we ask those caregivers and their children to come and visit us on campus, where we also play some child language friendly games with the children. At the home visits, because we're really interested in learning what caregivers are doing and how children are speaking both English and Spanish, we video record and we audio record natural interactions between caregivers and children. We also asked caregivers to play, engage in these play sessions with their children. And then finally, we administer child language assessments. Each of these visits last about an hour and a half. And the campus visits, we do something very similar, except we don't do the observations. We ask the caregiver to engage in play sessions with the children. We also administer child-friendly language tests, and it takes about an hour. Because we know that this study what we're trying to do is we're trying not to be intrusive to families. So what we are able to do is provide flexible scheduling. So if parents want us to go in the morning or they prefer evening times, we can go at any time during the day. We're also the ones who are traveling to the homes. So we don't ask the caregivers to come to campus until those last visits. And when we do ask them to come to campus, we reimburse them for their mileage, and we also provide parking at the university. Like I said before, we try to have minimal to no disruptive to the caregiver's daily routine. So when we go in, we ask them to go about their natural day. If they're cooking, if they're playing with the children, anything that they're doing, we want to see what they're doing in their home. I also want to note that participation is voluntary. So even though we would love for caregivers to stay throughout until the child is 3 years of age. But of course, everything's on a volunteer basis. So if they decide they no longer want to continue, they can drop out at any time. Now, I know that because I mentioned the audio recording and the video recording, I want to make sure that people understand that we're also making sure everything's confidential. So we don't use people's real names, and those videos and audios never leave our research space. As a thank you for our participants, we give video compilations of the target child. So these are the cutest little videos because the babies are tiny little 1-year-olds. And then by the time they finish the study, they're 3. And so the parents really love these videos because they can see their babies grow. But in addition to that, we give them $35 gift cards, and we give this gift card to each caregiver in the home. So as an example, if I've got mom, dad, and grandma, then I would give a $35 gift card to each one of those people at each home visit, which amounts to about $525 for the family. And then in addition to that, if they come to campus, we also give them, as a thank you, a $35 gift card for each campus visit, which amounts to about $105. This is in addition to paying for mileage and providing for that parking, because we don't want the families to have to spend any money. So I'm here today not only to share the details, but to also ask for your help in finding eligible families for this study. Families qualify if they have a child approaching a year of age, because we do start the study at 1. We're looking specifically for families who identify, as Latino. So the child hears Spanish and English at home, and this can be in any amount. So they can speak equal amounts of English and Spanish. They can speak mostly Spanish. They can speak mostly English. And we can travel to the Chicagoland area and to the surrounding suburbs. In addition to asking for your help, we would also be able to then give back in the form of providing this information about the findings. So what it is that we learn from parents about bilingual learning. We can set up informational booths at events. We can share information at healthcare settings. We can provide workshops with these findings with the community. So if you have access to Latino families, we would love to go and spread the word and share what it is that we find. I have here my contact information. So this is my office number, 508-3094. And then this is our general mailbox, loyolabilingual@luc.edu. And I think I kept that under 10 minutes.
You're good. You're good.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing this information.
Thank you so much for letting me talk about it.
Oh, of course, thank you. I wanted to open up the floor again for folks to ask questions. Again, you can come off mute. You can put your question in the chat. But while we're waiting for folks to generate some questions, I did have one. So we're talking about Latinos. We're talking about Spanish speaking. How does this work inform and help communities that are bilingual but with other languages?
So currently we're really just looking at Latino communities who speak both English and Spanish. We don't turn any families away. So we do in fact have some families who, for example, in our past study, we had families who spoke Filipino. And we'll include them in the study, and then we sort of just use them as like case studies to see what it's like to divide the language into 3 ways, the language environment in 3 ways. So we wouldn't turn anybody away if they were really interested in learning about the project, but that would be a question that we would ask in a different study.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, I was just thinking because I know there's some folks here that work with organizations that have that are other language based, and I'm sure that I'm like, man, this can inform so much like information, and very much eager to read the results and the study once the information is published. But like thinking ahead, like, all right, how does this help then other language folks? And as an agency, we try and really think about multilingual services and resources. And so I wondered, like, if that was within the scope of this work, or if it can help inform in the future.
I think you're absolutely right. It'll help inform. I think because we have such a large Spanish speaking community here, we can learn a lot about how to negotiate the two languages. And it's definitely work with other languages is definitely needed. And that, like you said, could be a subsequent research project.
Sure. Thank you so much. Any other questions for Dr. Gomez? Gomez, I apologize. I was here with the accent and then here with the accent. Anyone else?
I'll also put my contact information in the chat because I know I took the slide off.
Oh, sure. No, that's fine. We'll also send the slides out with the post-meeting email. I'll have the link to them. I know that sometimes it's a lot of information, but we'll try and condense it and send it out so that folks have not just the slides, but also your contact information. So thank
Beautiful.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right, so we have about 11 minutes to get through the rest of our agenda, which is wonderful. I love when I'm pressed for time because that means we had an engaging and interesting presentation. So I'm going to go back to our agenda real quick, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about our regional health office in Westchester. So my colleague Omira isn't able to join us after all today. But I did want to share a little bit more information about our Westchester office and the reason why it's important. If you give me a little bit of time. There was, so we had a press release about it, but within that press release was information that I wanted to share with all of you. Oh, here we go. Okay, so the reason why, like I said, the reason why this is important is because we're combining two different regions into one region. We're combining two offices to one, but then we're also consolidating some resources as well. So at this new location, we have classes, and IDPH will offer classes to certify and train school-based professionals to provide mandated vision and hearing screenings in Illinois to preschools and different schools, and then monthly plumbing and lead certification exams. So it's not just, an administrative office where we do paperwork and all that stuff. It's actually, a place to get training for different things. And again, I will link the news release of for that new office in with the post meeting email. The other thing that I wanted to share was a resource that was shared with our team. As you know, I'm part of the communications team here at the Illinois Department of Public Health. So I get to see, these resources that come through, and then we get to produce resources on different topics. But the one that caught our attention recently, and that we're working on getting it branded. So I'm showing you the preview, but I think it's really important, and I think it's important for us to share. So let me just share my screen. I'm going to stop my video and then share my screen. All right. So as you know, COVID was kind of winding down, but we still have, we're still on alert. We're still monitoring cases. We're still doing the work around COVID. And as such, we wanted to share this resource that came through our agency. And so this is a resource sheet that talks about COVID-19 antivirals that are covered by insurance, right? So after the emergency public health declaration was ended, that was last year, and so we were kind of in this what happens next? What resources are available for people who are still experiencing COVID, who get COVID, or who are experiencing long COVID? And so we have partners in different areas, but one of the resources that came through recently was this insurance, right? And so it kind of tells you, it kind of guides people through the different insurance options, but for two antivirals, so for Paxlovid and for I always get this one wrong, Lagevrio. If someone can pronounce it better than me, please let me know how to pronounce it. But anyway, so this information, right? So it goes through Medicaid and Medicare options, which is, populations that we work with, obviously, but also for the TRICARE and VA community, and then for folks that are uninsured. For private insurance, that's really up to employers and agencies that provide private insurance, and then you can speak to those insurance companies directly and ask about these different things. But this resource doesn't exclude them, so it's really helpful, and it gives you information about directly with the antiviral. So you can click here and then go and get some more information. But then finally, there's still access to these antivirals for free, right? And so where there's still Paxlovid for free through federal sources, there's still this other antiviral through federal sources, right? And so it just kind of takes a little bit more digging, and there's certain programs that are still sponsoring access to these antivirals for free. And so this kind of guides you, and this agency and the organization that we're working with is helping us to kind of give a little bit more information here in this space, right? Because that's a lot of what we're what we want to make sure that is available to the community. So this is one. This is the one of the resource sheets that we're working on, and the other great thing is that it's available in Spanish, right? I can only again speak to the Spanish translation, but I know that with if we bring up, and if I take back to this organization and say, hey, look, we have this request for another language, or just having this resource available in other languages would be really helpful. And I'm sure we can find a way to do that. Let me stop sharing my screen and ask if anyone has any questions about either the news release or the resource that I just shared. And yes, I will be sharing it via email. Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any questions, and that's okay. We will get to them later. The last thing that I wanted to leave you with, and I know I'm kind of rushing through this information, but I'll be sure to include it in the email. But we have our Minority Health Conference that we're starting to produce materials for. That's all the way in October, but the save the date went out via email in the ambassadors newsletter, and we're starting to gear up for it. In the past, and last year, I requested to have some free registration opportunities for our ambassadors. I think last year we got 3, and I think we're upping it this year by about 2. I don't know the final number yet, but just be on the lookout for that. If you're interested, please, you're welcome to send me an email, say I'm interested. I will tell you that we will pick ambassadors that at random. It won't be somebody, we'll try and make this as random and democratic as possible so that everyone has an opportunity to participate. But we'll have information about the Minority Health Conference coming up. It is going to be in Bloomington Normal. So if you want to make the trip down south, I will be there as usual. And I want to encourage all of you to join. It's really, really impactful. You get to be there with not just public health folks, but with people across the state that have an interest in the health of their communities. So it's really interesting. And what I really like about it is that it has this focus on the health of minority populations, quote unquote, minority populations across the state. So we really get information that's for the communities that we're serving, and then bring that back with us and continue to do the work. So if you're interested, like I said, we'll have more information as the months come along, but I wanted to let you all know that we're working on getting some comp passes for, or some comp registrations for our ambassadors group. Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Great. I don't see any, but if you do, as always, please feel free to send me an email. You're welcome to give me a call as well. And my contact information is always in my emails. And I'm looking forward to engaging with you all again. Our next meeting is next month at the end of June. It'll be June 26th, again at 3 o'clock. If you have any requests on what you'd like to see in these meetings, or any information from our agency that you'd like to know, or anything of interest that you think, I really want to learn more about this, or we have this resource at our agency or organization that we'd like to share. As you see, we have guests from all across the spectrum when it comes to public health, and really appreciate their time. And so you're all welcome to present and share our information as well. So with that, I will leave you all. Thanks again. Thanks, Karen. I see your note. I appreciate it. Thanks again to everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll be in touch until the next time we meet. Thank you.